Well, hello everyone. We are reading Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards. And we were getting started on cross-hatching. Cross-hatching a lighter shadow. Before we advance to the next drawing, your self-portrait, I want to show you how to cross-hatch. This is a technical term that artists use for creating a variety of tones or values in a drawing. By laying down a carpet of pencil strokes called hatches, often crossing the strokes at angles or cross-hatching. Figure 1024 is an example of a tonal drawing of a sphere built almost entirely of cross-hatches. When I first started teaching drawing, I thought that hatching and cross-hatching were natural activities and did not require teaching. But I learned that that was not the case. The ability to hatch or cross-hatch is a mark of a trained artist, and for most students, the technique must be taught and learned. If you glance through this book at the many reproductions, you will see that almost every drawing has some area of hatching. You will also notice that cross-hatching has almost as many forms as there are artists to use them. Each artist, it seems, develops a personal style of hatching, almost a signature. And very quickly, so will you. I show you the technique and a few of the traditional styles of hatching and cross-hatching. You will need paper and a carefully sharpened pencil, either your number 2 writing pencil or your 4B drawing pencil. 1. Hold your pencil firmly and make a group of parallel marks called a set, shown in figure 1025. By placing the pencil point down firmly, fingers extended, swing off each mark by moving the whole hand from the wrist. The wrist remains in place while your fingers pull the pencil back just a bit for each successive hatch. When you have finished one set of 8 to 10 hatch marks, move your hand and wrist to a new position and hatch a new set. Try swinging the mark towards you and also try swinging it away from you in an outward movement to see which seems more natural for you. Try also changing the angle and the length of the marks. 2. Practice making sets until you have found the direction, speed, spacing, and length of marks that seem right for you. 3. The next step is to make the cross sets. In classical hatching, the cross set is made at an angle only slightly different from the original set, as shown in figure 1026. This slight angle produces a very pretty moire pattern that causes a drawing to seem to shimmer with light and air. Try this. Figure 1027 shows you how to use cross-hatching to create a 3-dimensional form. 4. By increasing the angle of crossing, a different style of cross-hatch is achieved. In figure 1028, see various examples of styles of hatching. Full cross, which is hatch marks crossing at right angles, cross contour, usually curved hatches, and hooked hatches, where a slight hook inadvertently occurs at the end of the hatch. As in the topmost example of hatching styles in figure 1028, there are a myriad styles of hatching. 5. To increase the darkness of tone, simply pile up one set of hatches onto others, as shown in the left arm of the figure drawn by Alphonse Legros, figure 1029. 6. Practice, practice, practice. Instead of doodling while talking on the phone, practice cross-hatching. Perhaps shading geometric forms such as spheres or cylinders. See the example in 1030. As I mentioned, hatching is not a naturally occurring skill for most individuals, but it can be rapidly developed with practice. I assure you that skillful, individualized use of hatching and cross-hatching in your drawings will be gratifying to you and much admired by your viewers. Shading into a continuous tone. Areas of continuous tone are created without using the separate strokes of cross-hatching. The pencil is applied in either short, overlapping movements or in elliptical movements, going from dark areas to light and back again, if necessary, to create a smooth tone. Most students have little trouble with continuous tone, although practice is usually needed for smoothly modulated tones. Charles Sheeler, complex light/shadow drawing of the cat sleeping on a chair, figure 1031, superbly illustrates this technique. Drawing on the logic of light for a fully modeled tonal volumetric self-portrait. In these lessons, we begin with line drawing and we end with a fully articulated drawing. Modeled, tonal, and volumetric are the technical terms that describe the drawing you will do next. From this exercise onward, you will practice the 5 perceptual skills of drawing with constantly changing subject matter. The basic skill will soon become melded into a global skill, and you will find yourself just drawing. You will shift flexibly from edge to space to angles and proportions to lights and shadows. Soon the skills will be on automatic and someone watching you draw may be baffled by how you do it. I feel sure that you will find yourself seeing things differently, and I hope that for you, as for many students, life will seem much richer by having learned to see and draw. As you continue to draw after completing these lessons, you will begin to find your own unique style of using these fundamental components. Your personal style may evolve into a rapid, vigorous calligraphy, as in the Morisot self-portrait. Quick, I had to take a phone call. Your personal style may evolve into a rapid, vigorous calligraphy, as in the Morisot self-portrait, figure 10-32. A beautifully pale, delicate style of drawing, or a strong, dense style as the Courbet self-portrait. Or your style may become more and more precise, as in the Sheeler drawing, figure 1031. Remember, you're always searching for your unique way of seeing and drawing, no matter how your style evolves. However, you will always be using edges, spaces, and relationships, and usually, but not always, lights and shadows. And you will depict the thing itself, the gestalt, in your own way. Ready to draw. What you'll need for your self-portrait: your drawing paper, 3 or 4 sheets for padding taped to your drawing board, your pencils sharpened, and your erasers, a mirror and tape for attaching the mirror to the wall, or you may want to sit in front of a bathroom mirror or dressing table mirror, your felt tip marker, your graphite stick, a paper tissue or paper towel for rubbing in a ground, a floor lamp or a table lamp to illuminate one side of your head, a hat, scarf, or headdress if that idea appeals to you. What you'll do: 1. First, prepare your drawing paper with a format edge and a ground. You may choose any level of tone. You may want to do a high-key drawing by starting with a pale ground, or you may decide to use the drama of a dark ground for a low-key drawing. Or perhaps you prefer a middle value. Be sure to lightly draw in the crosshairs or erase them if your tone is dark. Note that, again, in this drawing, you will not need your plastic picture plane because the mirror becomes the picture plane. 2. Once your ground is prepared, set yourself up to draw. Check the setup in figure 1033. You will need a chair to sit in and a chair or a small table to hold your drawing tools. As you see in the diagram, you will lean your drawing board against the wall. Once you are seated, adjust the mirror on the wall so that you can comfortably see your image. Also, the mirror should be just at arm's length from where you are sitting. You want to be able to take sightings directly on the mirror as well as directly on your face and skull as you observe the measurements in the mirror. 3. Adjust the lamp and test out various poses by turning your head, raising or lowering your chin, and if you're wearing one, adjusting your hat or headdress until you see in the mirror a composition in lights and shadows that you like. Decide whether to draw a full face view or a 3/4 view, and decide which way you will turn, left or right, if you choose the 3/4 view. 4. Once you have carefully chosen your composition in the mirror and the pose is set, try to keep all your gear in place until the drawing is finished. If you stand up to take a break, for example, try not to move your chair or lamp. Students often find it very frustrating if they can't recapture exactly the same view when they sit down again. 5. You are now ready to draw. The instructions that follow are really only a suggestion for one procedure among myriad possible procedures. I suggest that you read through all the remaining instructions and follow the suggested procedures before you begin drawing. Later on, you'll find your own way to proceed. A self-portrait in pencil. 1. Gaze at your reflection in the mirror, searching for negative spaces, interesting edges, and the shape of lights and shadows. Try to suppress language entirely, particularly verbal criticism of your face or features. This is not easy to do because this is a new use of a mirror, not for checking or correcting, but to reflect an image in an almost impersonal way. Try to regard yourself the way you would regard a still life setup or a photograph of a stranger. 2. If you decide on a full face view, please review the proportions on page 213. Remember that due to the size consistency phenomenon, your brain may not be helping you see certain proportions, and I encourage you to take sights on everything, using your pencil as a sighting tool. Also, please review the full face blank on figure 1036. 3. If you have decided on a 3/4 view, please review the proportions for that view on page 217 and 218. One caution. Students sometimes begin to widen the narrow side of the face, and then, because that makes the face seem too wide, they narrow the near side of the face. Often the drawing ends up a frontal view even though the person was posing in 3/4 view. This is very frustrating for students because they often can't figure out what happened. The key is to accept your perceptions. Draw just what you see, cite everything, and don't second guess your sightings. 4. Choose a basic unit. This is entirely up to you. I generally use eye level to chin, and I often use felt tip marker to draw a central axis and the eye level line directly on my image in the mirror, and then mark the top of the bottom of my basic unit. You may prefer to start your drawing another way, perhaps relying only on the crosshairs you have drawn on the mirror. Please feel free to do so. You must, however, be sure to mark the top and bottom of your basic unit directly on the mirror. 5. The next step, of course, is to transfer your basic unit to your drawing paper with its crosshairs and toned ground. Just make marks at the top and bottom of your basic unit. You may wish to add marks for the top edge and side edges of the image of your head in the mirror. Transfer these marks to your drawing. 6. Next, squint your eyes a bit to mask some of the detail in your mirror image and find the large lighted shapes. Note where they are located relative to your basic unit, to the crosshairs in your drawing, and to the central axis / eye level lines, if you are using them. 7. Begin your drawing by erasing the largest lighted shapes, as in figure 1038. Try to avoid any small forms or edges right now. You are trying to see the large lights and shadows. 8. You may wish to erase the ground around the head, leaving the toned ground as the middle value of your head. You may, on the other hand, want to lower the value or darken the negative spaces. These are aesthetic choices. 9. You may want to add some graphite to the shadowed side of the face. For this, I recommend your 4B pencil, not the graphite stick, which is somewhat hard to control and becomes rather greasy if pressed hard on paper. 10. I'm sure you've noticed that I have said nothing about eyes, nose, or mouth up to this point. If you can resist the impulse to draw the features first and allow them to come out of the light and shadow patterns, you will be able to exploit the full power of this kind of drawing. 11. Rather than drawing the eyes, for example, I recommend that you rub your 4B pencil point on a scrap paper. Rub your forefinger over the graphite and checking back in the mirror for the location of the eyes, rub your graphite-covered fingertip where the eyes should be. Suddenly you will be able to see the eyes, and you need only to slightly reinforce that ghostly perception. 12. Once you have the large shapes of lights and shadows drawn, begin to look for some of the smaller shapes. For example, you may find a shadowed shape under the lower lip, the chin, or the nose. You may see a shadow shape on the side of the nose or under the lower lid. You can slightly tone the shadow shape with your pencil using cross-hatching, or if you wish, rub the tone in with your finger to smooth it. Be sure that you place and tone the shadow shape exactly as you see them. They are the shapes they are because of the bone structure, the flesh, and the particular light that falls on the shape. 13. At this point, you are ready to decide whether you want to leave the drawing at this somewhat rough or unfinished stage, or whether you want to work the drawing up to a high finish. Throughout this book, you will find numerous examples of drawings at various degrees of finish. Drawing hair. The portrait drawing throughout this book demonstrates various ways of drawing different types of hair. There's obviously no one way of depicting hair, just as there is no one way to draw eyes, noses, or mouths. As always, the answer to any drawing problem is to draw what you see. Start with drawing the larger shapes of lights and shadows in the hair, and add enough detail to show the nature of the hair. Now that you have read all the instructions, you are ready to begin. I hope you will find yourself quickly shifting into R mode every once in a while. It is helpful to stand up and regard your drawing from a greater distance. In this way, you regard the drawing more critically, more analytically, perhaps noting slight errors or slight discrepancies in proportions. This is the artist's way. Shifting out of the working R mode and back to L mode, the artist assesses the next move, tests the drawing against the critical left brain standards, plans the required corrections, and notes where areas must be reworked. Then, by taking up the pencil and starting in again, the artist shifts back into the working R mode. This on-off procedure continues until the work is done, that is, until the artist decides that no further work is needed. After you have finished, a personal before and after comparison. This is a good time to retrieve your pre-instruction drawings and compare them with the drawing you have just completed. Please lay out the drawings for review. I fully expect that you are looking at a transformation of your drawing skills. Often my students are amazed, even incredulous, that they could actually have done the pre-instruction drawings they now find in front of them. The errors in perception seem so obvious, so childish, that it even seems that someone else must have done the drawing. And in a way, I suppose this is true. The L mode in drawing sees what is out there in its own way, linked conceptually and symbolically to ways of seeing, naming, and drawing developed during childhood. Your recent drawings, on the other hand, are more complex, more linked to actual perceptual information from out there, drawn from the present moment, not from memorized symbols of the past. These drawings are therefore more realistic. A friend might remark upon looking at your drawings that you had uncovered a hidden talent. In a way, I believe this is true, although I am convinced that this talent is not confined to a few, but instead is widespread as, say, talent for reading. Your recent drawings aren't necessarily more expressive than your before illustration drawings. Conceptual L mode drawings can be powerfully expressive. Your after instruction drawings are expressive as well, but in a different way. They are more specific, more complicated, more true to life. They are the result of newfound skills for seeing things differently, of drawing from a different point of view. The true and more subtle expression is in your unique style of drawing and your unique take on the model, in this instance, yourself. At some future time, you may wish to partly reintegrate simplified conceptual forms into your drawings. But you will do so by design, not by mistake or inability to draw realistically, if that is your intent. For now, I hope you are proud of your drawings as a sign of victory in the effort of learning basic perceptual skills. And now that you have seen and drawn your own face with great care, surely you understand what artists mean when they say that every human face is beautiful. A showing of portraits. As you look at the post-instruction self-portraits in Chapter 2, go through the measurement process yourself. This will help reinforce your skills and train your eye. A suggestion for your next drawing. A suggestion for a follow-up exercise that has proven to be amusing and interesting is to draw your self-portrait as a character from art history. Such drawings might include self-portrait as the Mona Lisa or self-portrait as a Renaissance youth. All right, Chapter 11. Using your new perceptual skills for creative problem solving. And on that page is a prehistoric painting of a standing bison from the cave at Altamira in northern Spain. Charcoal and white, and it's symbolic. Now that you have learned the 5 basic perceptual skills of drawing, I hope you will try to do a bit of drawing every day. New neutral pathways in your brain form as a result of repeating new learning. That means practice. The best way to keep your skills growing is to carry a small sketchbook, and whenever you have a few spare minutes, draw anything at all that you see nearby: a cup, a stapler, a pair of scissors, a potted plant, or even just a leaf. Another suggestion is to copy newspaper photographs upside down, as this is the quickest and best way to shift your brain mode. Sports or dance photos often have wonderful negative spaces for drawing upside down. The very best practice, of course, is to draw any subject from life or to copy master drawings. Even mental practice can help keep open your new access to right hemisphere visual perceptual skills. By looking for negative spaces in your surroundings, finding eye level and determining angles relative to vertical and horizontal, or checking out facial proportions on people you meet or faces on television. Whether you are drawing or practicing mentally, the key to accessing visual skills is always the same strategy: focusing on visual information that the left hemisphere will reject. Another productive way to practice your new perceptual skill is to apply them to a general thinking and problem solving. And for some, this may prove to be the main value of learning to draw. A basic review of the creative process will add power to this use of the basic skills. Applying perceptual skills to creative problem solving. In our highly verbal, digital, and technological 21st century American culture, it might seem odd or foolish to propose that learning to draw would be of any practical value whatsoever, aside from interest, curiosity, or self-improvement. My hope is that in time it will make sense. I suggest ways that the 5 basic perceptual skills learned through drawing can add insight to verbal, analytic problem solving, and I connect perceptual skills to the traditional stages of creativity. In addition, I recommend programming your own brain, that is, to deliberately set up your brain for the stages of creativity and problem solving. There is no question that we must solve our processing problems. Inadequate educational system, a deteriorating environment, and competitive economic pressures from around the world, among many others. According to American psychologist Abraham Maslow, a sense that we need another way of thinking seemed to be in the air even in the mid-1970s, and the perceived need has steadily increased since then. Although left brain styles of thinking still clearly dominate our American life, the right brain response of seeing the whole picture, seeing the forest and not just the trees, and posing intuitive questions is becoming better known and more common. While our language-dominated brains are still engaging in linear plans and purposes, the other half of the brain is seeing what is out there and wordlessly protesting with what I think is the iconic right brain question, "Hey, wait a minute, what about?" More frequently than in the past, the question is gaining serious attention. Computers in the left brain. For some time now, powerful computers have been able to perform most left hemisphere functions better and faster than the human brain, and according to Moore's law, computing power will continue to increase exponentially in the near future and perhaps beyond. It is not surprising that computers first mastered left hemisphere functions of the brain. The step-by-step progression of L-mode thought is well suited to computer functions. Computers mirror the linear nature of language itself, composed as it is of one letter following another to form a word, and words following words to form a sentence. These bits progress over time, things strung out in strings that in L-mode style are resistant to allowing in new incoming information until a conclusion is reached, because new data might be disruptive. A clear human example of this aspect of L-mode thought appeared in the news after the oil crisis of the 1970s. The then president of one of the largest American automakers was asked by a reporter, quote, "Couldn't you see that continuing to produce huge gas-guzzling cars while people were spending long hours in line for high-priced gas was not in your best interest?" The president replied, "Yes, we did see that, but we were in the middle of our 5-year plan." Recent research has shown that the language-based brain hemisphere, the L-mode, can cause some problems in human thinking. Roger Sperry himself said that the left brain is aggressive and competitive with its silent partner, and often with other people's brains as well. The question of which brain mode will be first to respond in most situations is which hemisphere gets there first. And most often, it is the quick, verbal, competitive left brain, whether it is suited to the task or not. Furthermore, if a question comes up to which the left hemisphere does not know the answer, it sometimes simply makes up an answer, or it will even prevaricate with great aplomb, aplomb. This can leave the silent right brain, which may see something critically relevant to the subject, sputtering in its inability to prevail over or even help out its verbal partner. Television is amazingly effective for seeing this L-mode domination in operation simply by observing eye dominance, which is determined by language location in the brain and is fairly easy to detect. Looking at a person's face, simply focus your direct gaze first on one eye and then shift your gaze to the other eye. In general, the eye controlled by the dominant verbal hemisphere, parentheses, it might be the left or the right eye depending on the individual's brain organization, end parentheses, is wider open, brighter, and appears to be listening to the words being spoken. To try out this observation, find a person's face shown in frontal view on the television screen. Someone who is talking, perhaps answering questions. Focus for a moment on the dominant eye, most often the right eye, controlled by the left brain, and then shift your direct gaze to the other eye, controlled by the right hemisphere. In many cases, you will clearly see a difference. The subdominant eye often appears to be more hooded by the eyelid, less bright, and in a sense unavailable. If the person speaking is dogmatically committed to his or her pronouncements, the subdominant eye, usually the left eye, can appear to be almost oblivious to the words being spoken, as though it has given up trying with other speakers. It is comforting to observe non-dominant eyes that are still alert and participating. And I think that's a good place to stop. We're just over 30 minutes in GarageBand, so I'll see you next episode.